The huge chamber buzzed with alien voices as delegates from across the galaxy took their seats. The monthly meeting of the Galactic Council was about to begin, and as always, the human table sat quietly in the corner. Jake Martinez adjusted his simple black suit and checked his notes one more time. His calm face showed no worry, even though today's meeting would decide the fate of several human colonies. Lisa Thompson sat next to him, her fingers drumming nervously on the table. She had been working as a diplomat for only 6 months, but she had already learned the routine. The aliens would make demands. Jake would smile and nod. Humanity would give up something else to keep the peace. It was always the same. "Don't look so worried," Jake whispered to her. "Everything will be fine." But Lisa noticed how Danny Rodriguez, Jake's assistant, had gone very quiet. Danny usually talked nonstop before meetings, sharing gossip and jokes. Today he just stared at his tablet screen, his jaw tight. Captain Amy Collins stood near the wall with her security team. They wore dress uniforms and carried ceremonial weapons, looking more like honor guards than real soldiers. The aliens barely noticed them anymore. After 3 years of peaceful meetings, everyone knew humans never caused trouble. The chamber itself was massive, built to hold representatives from dozens of different species. The ceiling rose high above them, covered in glowing symbols that showed the unity of the Galactic Council, or at least that was what the symbols were supposed to mean. Speaker Morden called the meeting to order. The giant insect-like alien stood at the center podium, his multiple eyes scanning the room. When his gaze fell on the human section, his mandibles clicked together in what other species had learned was Cytherian amusement. "Today we discuss territorial disputes in the Outer Rim sectors," Morden announced. His voice buzzed through the translation devices everyone wore. "First, we hear from Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire." The Zephyrian delegate stood up. His blue-scaled face gleamed under the chamber lights as he activated a holographic display showing star maps. Red dots marked the systems his people wanted to claim. "The Zephyrian Empire formally claims the Kepler 442 system," he declared. "Our scientists have determined that the planets in this system are perfectly suited for our breeding colonies." Lisa's hand tightened on her stylus. Kepler 442 was home to New Dallas, a human colony of nearly 2 million people. The humans had been terraforming those worlds for 20 years, turning dead rocks into green, living planets. She started to stand up, but Jake's gentle hand on her arm stopped her. He shook his head just slightly and she sat back down. Around the chamber, she could see other delegates watching them with interest. Some looked amused, others seemed bored, as if they already knew how this would end. "We understand the Zephyrian position," Jake said when given permission to speak. His voice was steady and polite. "The Kepler system is certainly valuable. Perhaps we can work out some kind of arrangement that benefits everyone." Commander Veltar's laugh was like breaking glass. "What arrangement? You humans have held those worlds for decades without permission from the Council. We are simply correcting this oversight. Our people have families there," Lisa said before she could stop herself. "They've built schools and hospitals. Children were born on those worlds. Then they can move." Veltar replied with a shrug. "The galaxy is large. Find somewhere else." Around the chamber, other delegates murmured their agreement. The Draknari trade minister leaned over to whisper something to his aide, and both reptilian aliens hissed with laughter. Near the front, the crystal-like Vorthan representative actually glowed brighter with what Lisa had learned was their version of amusement. Jake's smile never changed. "We'll need to discuss this with our government, of course. These decisions take time." "Of course they do," said Counselor Zixara from the Hegemony Coalition. The pale, thin alien's voice was like ice. "Humans always need time to think, time to discuss, time to find reasons to delay." More laughter echoed through the chamber. Lisa felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. 3 years of this. 3 years of being treated like children who didn't understand how the real world worked. She glanced at Danny, expecting to see him typing notes as usual. Instead, he was staring straight ahead, his tablet dark. His hands were flat on the table, completely still. That was strange. Danny was never still. Captain Collins had moved slightly too. She was still standing in the same spot, but something about her posture had changed. Her weight was balanced differently, like she was ready to move quickly. The other security guards had shifted as well, almost without anyone noticing. The Council recognizes humanity's peaceful nature, Speaker Mordun said, his compound eyes glittering. This is why we try to find solutions that avoid conflict. No one wants to see humans hurt. The word sounded kind, but everyone in the chamber understood the real message. Humans were weak. Humans couldn't fight back. Humans would always back down rather than risk a real confrontation. Jake nodded thoughtfully. We appreciate the Council's concern for our well-being. Peace is very important to us. Yes, we know, Veltar said with obvious satisfaction. It's what makes you so manageable. Lisa wanted to scream. She wanted to slam her fist on the table and tell these arrogant aliens exactly what she thought of them. Instead, she forced herself to sit quietly and watch Jake handle the negotiations with his endless patience. But as she watched, she began to notice small things. The way Jake's fingers drummed a pattern on the table that looked almost like military code. The way Danny's eyes kept flicking to the exits and security cameras. The way Captain Collins seemed to be counting something under her breath. 3 years of diplomatic meetings had taught the aliens that humans were polite, reasonable, and most importantly, harmless. They had learned to see human patience as weakness and human courtesy as surrender. What they hadn't learned was the difference between choosing not to fight and being unable to fight. They hadn't wondered why a species as supposedly weak as humanity had survived long enough to join the Council. In the first place, they hadn't asked themselves what kind of civilization could terraform dozens of worlds while maintaining perfect diplomatic relations with dozens of hostile species. The meeting continued with more territorial disputes and trade disagreements. Each time the aliens made demands and the humans made concessions. It was a familiar dance that everyone knew by heart. But today felt different somehow. Today Lisa noticed that Jake's smile seemed a little too perfect. Danny's silence felt a little too complete. Captain Collins' stillness seemed a little too controlled. The aliens saw what they expected to see. Weak humans accepting their place in the cosmic order. They didn't see the small signs that something was about to change. They didn't notice that humanity's polite mask was starting to slip, just a little bit around the edges. The monthly council meeting was proceeding exactly as it always did. Soon, it would end exactly as it always did, with human dignity being traded away for the promise of peace. At least that's what everyone expected. The second session began 2 hours later, after the council had enjoyed their midday meal. Jake Martinez returned to his seat with the same calm expression he always wore. Lisa Thompson sat beside him, but her hands shook slightly as she opened her tablet. The morning's discussions had been bad enough, but afternoon sessions were usually worse. Danny Rodriguez placed a fresh cup of coffee in front of Jake, but his movements were too careful, too precise. Captain Amy Collins resumed her position by the wall, her eyes scanning the room in a pattern that seemed random but wasn't. Speaker Mordoon called for attention, his insect-like voice cutting through the chatter. The Council will now hear them. Hegemony Coalition's proposal for restructuring human territorial holdings. Lisa's stomach dropped. Restructuring proposals were never good news for smaller species. She had read about what happened to the Altarian Confederation when they received their restructuring proposal. The Altarians had refused to accept it. 3 months later, their homeworld was a radioactive wasteland. Counselor Zixara glided to the central podium. The pale alien's movements were smooth and graceful, like a predator approaching wounded prey. Her cold eyes fixed on the human delegation as she activated the holographic display. The Hegemony Coalition has carefully studied humanity's current territorial situation, she began. Her voice was soft but carried clearly through the chamber. We have identified several inefficiencies that require immediate correction. The holographic display showed human space in blue dots scattered across dozens of star systems. As Zixara spoke, the blue dots began changing to red, one by one. First, we recommend the immediate transfer of all mining operations in these 12 systems to more experienced species. Human mining techniques are outdated and wasteful. 12 blue dots turned red. Lisa knew those systems employed over 50 million human workers. They were the backbone of Earth's economy. Second, we suggest relocating human agricultural colonies to worlds better suited to their limited capabilities. The current assignments are clearly beyond human management skills. 20 more dots changed color. Lisa felt sick. Those agricultural worlds fed half the human population. Without them, Earth would face starvation within a year. Finally, we propose establishing a protective governance structure for Earth itself. Given humanity's obvious struggles with interstellar relations, this guidance is necessary for their continued survival. The blue dot representing Earth flickered and turned red. The chamber fell silent. Lisa stared at the display, unable to believe what she was seeing. They weren't just taking human colonies. They were taking Earth itself. Jake's voice was steady when he spoke. This proposal is quite comprehensive. Could you clarify what you mean by protective governance? Zixara's smile was razor-thin. Experienced species would oversee human decision-making. For your own protection, of course. Humans have shown they cannot handle the complexities of galactic politics. And if we decline this offer? Jake asked. Commander Veltar leaned forward eagerly. Then you'll face the same consequences as any species that refuses council guidance. Surely you remember the Altarians. The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Everyone in the chamber knew what had happened to the Altarians. Their refusal to accept a restructuring proposal had ended with their entire species being wiped out. Lisa gripped her stylus so hard she thought it might break. Beside her, Jake sat perfectly still, his hands folded on the table. The silence stretched on and on. I see, Jake said finally. And when would this restructuring take effect? Speaker Morden's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The council has already voted. The decision is effective immediately. We're informing you as a courtesy. Lisa's mouth fell open. You voted without us? Why would we need human input? Zixara asked with mock surprise. This is for your own benefit. Children don't vote on their bedtime. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Draknari delegates hissed with amusement. The Vorthan representative pulsed with bright colors. Even the usually neutral keeper species seemed to find humor in humanity's situation. Jake's smile never wavered, but something in his eyes changed. It was subtle, so subtle that most of the aliens missed it completely. But Lisa saw it. Danny saw it. Captain Collins saw it. Danny, Jake said quietly, could you pull up our contingency files? Danny's fingers moved across his tablet with military precision. Which classification level, sir? Start with level 7. Lisa blinked. She had level 4 clearance, which she thought was quite high for a junior diplomat. She had never heard of level 7. The coalition is prepared to be generous, Zixara continued, unaware that anything had changed. Human workers will be allowed to remain in their current positions under proper supervision. Your species will be well cared for. Jake nodded thoughtfully. That's very kind. Before we discuss the details, though, I think there are some things you should know about humanity. Some things we haven't mentioned in our previous conversations. Captain Collins stepped forward. The movement was fluid and controlled, nothing like the ceremonial positioning she had maintained for 3 years. Around the chamber, her security team shifted as well, and suddenly, they didn't look like honor guards anymore. For instance, Jake continued in the same conversational tone. Did you know that every human diplomatic mission includes a complete military intelligence unit? The smugness in the chamber wavered slightly. Several delegates exchanged glances. Danny looked up from his tablet. Operation Silent Garden is fully operational, sir. Complete intelligence profiles on all council species, including defense networks, fleet positions, and command structures. Danny, Jake said pleasantly, what's the current status of the Terran Defense Initiative? All assets are in position, sir. We've been maintaining Readiness Condition 2 for the past 6 months. Lisa stared at Danny in shock. Readiness Condition 2 meant active combat preparation. How had she not known about this? Zixara's pale face had gone even whiter. What are you talking about? Humans don't have a military. You're a peaceful species. Jake's smile became something else entirely. It was still polite, still diplomatic, but now it carried an edge that made several nearby delegates unconsciously lean away. We are a peaceful species, he agreed. We prefer peace to war. We choose diplomacy over violence. We seek cooperation instead of conflict. He paused, letting his words sink in. But preference is not inability. Choice is not weakness, and seeking peace doesn't mean being unprepared for war. The chamber had gone completely quiet. Even the constant hum of alien conversation had stopped. You see, Jake continued, for 3 years we've been showing you our diplomatic face. We've been polite, reasonable, and accommodating. We've compromised when we could have demanded. We've negotiated when we could have dictated. Captain Collins checked her weapon. It wasn't a ceremonial gesture anymore. But apparently, Jake said, his voice still perfectly calm, politeness has been mistaken for weakness. Diplomacy has been confused with surrender. And our willingness to compromise has been seen as inability to fight. Speaker Morden's compound eyes darted nervously between Jake and the tactical displays that were beginning to light up around the chamber. That, Jake said with his diplomatic smile, was a mistake. The silence in the chamber stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Jake Martinez sat perfectly still, his diplomatic smile unchanged, but everyone could feel that something fundamental had shifted. The air itself seemed heavier, charged with a tension that made several alien delegates fidget in their seats. Lisa Thompson stared at Jake in amazement. In 6 months of working with him, she had never seen him like this. His voice was the same, his posture was the same. But there was something in his eyes that was completely different. It was like watching a mask slip away to reveal what had always been underneath. Danny Rodriguez continued typing on his tablet, but now his movements had the quick efficiency of a soldier receiving orders. The casual assistant who joked around, the office was gone, replaced by someone who moved with military precision. Danny, Jake said conversationally, please share the Zephyrian files with the council. Danny's fingers flew across the screen. Broadcasting now, sir. The main display. Screen flickered to life, showing detailed schematics of Zephyrian military installations. Star charts appeared next, marking every Zephyrian base, shipyard, and command center within 50 light-years of Earth. Commander Veltar's blue-scaled face turned pale. How did you get this information? These are classified military secrets. Were classified, Jake corrected gently. We've had access to your military networks for 18 months. Your security protocols are adequate for keeping out most species. Lisa watched in shock as more files appeared on the screen. Detailed reports on Zephyrian fleet movements, supply routes, and defensive weaknesses. Information that would have taken years of espionage to collect. Most species aren't human, Captain Amy Collins added from her position by the wall. Her hand rested casually on her weapon, but Lisa noticed it wasn't the ceremonial pistol she usually carried. This was something much more serious. Danny pulled up another file. Should I show them the Hegemony Coalition intelligence, sir? Please do. Counselor Zixara made a choking sound as her species' most closely guarded secrets appeared on the screen for everyone to see. Trade agreements, secret military alliances, and detailed plans for conquering smaller species were laid out in perfect detail. This is impossible, she whispered. Our encryption is unbreakable. No species has ever penetrated our communication networks. No other species has tried hard enough, Jake replied. You see, Counselor, humans are very good at adapting. We're excellent at learning new technologies, and we're particularly skilled at solving problems that others think are impossible. Lisa felt like she was watching a completely different person. The Jake she knew was patient and kind, always looking for peaceful solutions. This Jake was still patient and kind, but there was steel underneath the silk now. For 3 years, Jake continued, we've been studying all of you. Learning your weaknesses, mapping your territories, understanding your technologies. We've been planning for every possible scenario. Speaker Morden's compound eyes darted frantically around the chamber. Planning for what? You're talking about espionage. This is against every council treaty. Jake's smile didn't change. We're talking about intelligence gathering. Every species does it. We're just better at it than most. Captain Collins stepped forward, and suddenly the 6 soldiers with her didn't look like ceremonial guards anymore. They moved with the fluid coordination of a combat unit, spreading out to control the room's exits and sight lines. The difference, Jake said, is that we've been gathering intelligence while maintaining perfect diplomatic relations. We've been preparing for war while working for peace. We've been planning for the worst while hoping for the best. Danny looked up from his tablet. Sir, should I activate the communication blackout? Not yet. Let our friends hear what we have to say first. Lisa realized that the entire human delegation had changed. Danny wasn't just an assistant, he was an intelligence officer. Captain Collins wasn't just security. She was a special forces commander. Even Lisa herself had been kept in the dark about humanity's real capabilities. You want to know something interesting about humans? Jake asked the chamber. We're very good at pretending to be something we're not. We've spent 3 years pretending to be weak, helpless, and dependent on council protection. The holographic display shifted to show human territories, but instead of the scattered, poorly defended colonies the aliens expected to see, the map revealed a complex defensive network. Hidden bases, concealed weapon platforms, and camouflaged fleet positions appeared in system after system. We've been pretending to be grateful for your guidance while building our own infrastructure. We've been pretending to be technologically backward while developing weapons you've never seen before. We've been pretending to be defenseless while creating the most advanced military in the galaxy. Commander Veltar's voice cracked. This is madness. You're talking about war against the entire council. No, Jake said calmly. We're talking about defending ourselves against species who think we're too weak to fight back. There's a difference. Lisa found her voice. Jake, what about all our peace treaties? What about diplomatic relations? Jake turned to her, and for a moment his expression softened. Lisa, everything we've done has been in service of peace. But peace isn't possible when one side thinks the other is helpless. Peace requires respect, and respect requires understanding. He looked back at the alien delegates. For 3 years, you've seen us as weak because we chose diplomacy over violence. You've seen us as helpless because we preferred negotiation to war. You've mistaken our courtesy for cowardice and our patience for powerlessness. Captain Collins smiled, and it wasn't a nice expression. Humans don't fight because we have to. We fight because we choose to. And when we choose to fight, we're very good at it. Danny called up another file. Project Deep Strike is ready for activation, sir. All target packages are confirmed. What is Project Deep Strike? Speaker Morden asked, though his voice suggested he didn't really want to know. Every major military installation, government center, and communications hub in council space, Jake explained matter-of-factly. We can disable your entire command structure within 30 minutes of giving the order. The chamber erupted in panicked alien voices. Delegates shouted questions, made threats, and demanded explanations. But Jake sat quietly through it all, waiting for the noise to die down. When silence returned, he spoke again. We don't want to fight you. We never have. But we will not be enslaved, relocated, or placed under protective governance. We will not accept your restructuring proposal, and we will not pretend to be helpless anymore. Lisa stared at him in awe. This was still Jake Martinez, the diplomatic ambassador who had patiently negotiated with alien species for 3 years. But now she could see what had always been there underneath. The strength, the intelligence, and the absolute determination to protect humanity at any cost. So, Jake said pleasantly, shall we discuss a more reasonable arrangement? One that treats humanity as an equal partner, rather than a subject species? His diplomatic smile was back, but now everyone in the chamber could see the steel beneath. The mask hadn't fallen away completely, it had simply become transparent. After all, he added, We've always preferred negotiation to the alternatives. The panic in the chamber was thick enough to cut with a knife. Alien delegates whispered frantically to their aides, some reaching for communication devices only to find their signals blocked. Others stared at the tactical displays showing human capabilities they had never imagined possible. Jake Martinez sat calmly in the center of it all like the eye of a storm. His hands were folded neatly on the table, his expression patient and understanding. He looked exactly like the diplomatic ambassador he had always appeared to be, except now everyone could see the predator that had been hiding behind the smile. Danny Rodriguez continued reading from his tablet in the same tone he might use to discuss lunch plans. Operation Lighthouse reports all deep space monitoring stations are active and tracking Council fleet movements in real time. Current threat assessment shows 87% of hostile vessels are within range of human defensive systems. Lisa, Thompson felt like she was watching a magic trick being performed in reverse. Instead of making something disappear, Jake was revealing things that had been there all along. The helpful assistant was a military intelligence officer. The ceremonial guards were elite soldiers. The peaceful ambassador was a strategic mastermind. Danny, Jake said conversationally, what's the status of our industrial facilities? All manufacturing centers are operating at full capacity, sir. Current production includes 1,200 new vessels per month, plus defensive platforms and support systems. We've been stockpiling for 18 months. Commander Veltar's scaled. Hands shook as he gripped his podium. 1,200 ships per month? That's impossible. Our intelligence reports show humans have fewer than 50 military vessels total. Your intelligence reports show exactly what we wanted them to show, Captain Amy Collins replied. Her voice was calm and professional, but there was something in her tone that made several aliens step back. Humans are very good at misdirection. The main display screen changed again, showing what appeared to be empty space around human colonies. Then the view shifted, revealing the true picture. Massive shipyards hidden inside asteroids. Platforms disguised as communication satellites. Entire fleets concealed in the shadows of gas giants. Stealth technology, Jake explained helpfully. We developed it about 5 years ago. Useful for hiding things you don't want others to see. Counselor Zixara's pale face had gone completely white. This is impossible. Our sensors would have detected construction on this scale. The energy signatures alone would have been detected if we were using your technology, Danny finished. Human power systems work differently, much more efficiently, much harder to detect. Lisa realized she was holding her breath. Everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the galaxy was crumbling around her. They weren't the weak species begging for protection. They were the apex predator pretending to be prey. How long? Speaker Morden asked, his compound eyes wide with shock. How long have you been planning this? Jake considered the question seriously. Since the day we joined the Council, we knew that peaceful species don't survive long in galactic politics unless they're strong enough to defend themselves. So we decided to become strong enough. But quietly, Captain Collins added. Very quietly. The display screen shifted again, showing detailed intelligence reports on every Council species. Military capabilities, economic weaknesses, political structures, and command hierarchies were laid out with surgical precision. Project Mirror Image, Danny announced. Complete infiltration of Council information networks. We've been reading your classified communications for 2 years, including, Jake said with his diplomatic smile, the conversations where you plan to divide up human territories after our extinction. Very illuminating reading. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Several alien delegates looked like they were going to be sick. You want to know the most interesting thing we learned? Jake continued. Every species in this chamber has plans for eliminating every other species. The Zephyrians have detailed invasion plans for Draknari space. The Hegemony Coalition has prepared for war against the Keepers. Everyone is planning to betray everyone else. Except, Captain Collins said, you all assumed humans would never be a threat. You planned around us but never against us. Lisa watched as the reality of the situation sank in across the chamber. The humans hadn't just been gathering intelligence. They had been studying their enemies while those enemies ignored them completely. We know about the secret shipyards in the Dreknari asteroid belt. Danny read from his tablet. We know about the Hegemony Coalition's bioweapon research facilities. We know about the Zephyrian breeding program for warrior castes. We know about all of it. More importantly, Jake added, we know how to stop all of it. The display screen showed targeting solutions for every major military installation in Council space. Precise strike plans that would cripple each species' ability to wage war within hours. This is why we've been so patient, Jake explained. This is why we've been so willing to compromise. We knew that eventually someone would push too far. Someone would mistake our kindness for weakness. Someone would decide that humans were safe to eliminate. He looked directly at Counselor Zixara. Congratulations, you won. The Hegemony Coalition representative seemed to shrink in her chair. What do you want? What we've always wanted, Jake replied. To be left alone to live our lives in peace. The difference is that now you understand what happens if you don't respect that wish. Captain Collins stepped forward again. Humans don't fight because we're angry. We don't fight because we're scared. We fight because we choose to. And when we choose to fight, we win. Lisa found her voice. Jake, what about diplomacy? What about peaceful relations? Jake turned to her with a gentler expression. Lisa, everything we're doing is in service of diplomacy. But diplomacy only works between equals. For 3 years we've been treated as inferiors because you all thought we were weak. He looked back at the alien delegates. Now you know better. Now we can have real diplomatic relations based on mutual respect instead of assumed superiority. Danny looked up from his tablet. Sir, we're receiving priority communications from Earth Command. All defense fleets are ready for deployment on your orders. Thank you, Danny. Please send my compliments to the fleet commanders and tell them to maintain current readiness levels. Jake stood up slowly, his movement controlled and deliberate. Around the chamber, alien delegates watched him with a mixture of fear and newfound respect. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, he said formally, humanity withdraws its acceptance of the restructuring proposal. We also withdraw our acceptance of any territorial claims made without our consent. From this moment forward, human space is under human control. He smiled his diplomatic smile, but now everyone could see the steel beneath it. Any attempt to enforce the previous arrangement will be considered an act of war. Any attempt to invade human territory will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. Any attempt to harm human civilians will result in the complete destruction of the aggressor's military capacity. The chamber was dead silent. However, Jake continued pleasantly, we remain open to reasonable negotiations between equal partners. We prefer peace to war, cooperation to conflict, and mutual benefit to mutual destruction. He sat back down and folded his hands on the table. The choice, as always, is yours. The silence in the chamber stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Jake Martinez sat perfectly still, his diplomatic smile unchanged, while alien delegates struggled to process the complete reversal of everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Speaker Morden was the first to find his voice, though his usual confident buzz had been replaced by something much more careful. Ambassador Martinez, surely we can discuss this situation like reasonable beings. Of course, Jake replied pleasantly. That's what we're doing right now. Discussing things like reasonable beings who respect each other's sovereignty and right to exist. Lisa Thompson watched as the power dynamics in the room shifted like tectonic plates. 3 hours ago, the aliens had been condescending to humans like adults talking to children. Now they were speaking to Jake with the careful politeness reserved for dangerous equals. Commander Veltar cleared his throat nervously. Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding about the Kepler 442 system. The Zephyrian Empire would be willing to reconsider our territorial claim. How generous, Jake said with the same tone he might use to thank someone for holding a door open. Danny, please note that the Zephyrian Empire has withdrawn their claim to human territory. Danny Rodriguez typed efficiently on his tablet. Noted, sir. Should I update our threat assessment matrix? Please do. Commander Veltar's species can be moved from hostile to neutral pending their future actions. Lisa realized that Jake wasn't just negotiating anymore. He was dictating terms from a position of absolute strength, but doing it so politely that the aliens almost felt grateful for his mercy. Counselor Zixara leaned forward desperately. The Hegemony Coalition's restructuring proposal was simply intended to help humanity integrate better with galactic society. We had no intention of causing offense. Jake's smile never wavered. I appreciate the clarification, Counselor. Of course, the complete invasion plans we found in your classified files suggested otherwise, but I'm sure that was just a misunderstanding. The pale alien's face somehow became even whiter. Those were theoretical contingencies. Military planning exercises, nothing more. Naturally, Jake agreed. Just like our defensive preparations are theoretical contingencies, military planning exercises, nothing more. Captain Amy Collins stepped forward with a datapad in her hand. Sir, I have the real-time fleet positions if you'd like to share them with the Council. An excellent idea, Captain. The main display screen lit up with a tactical map of local space. What had appeared to be empty void was suddenly filled with contact markers, hundreds of them, surrounding every major alien world and installation within 20 light-years. The effect on the chamber was immediate. Several delegates gasped. Others made choking sounds. A few simply stared in stunned silence at the overwhelming display of human military power. These are the positions of our defensive fleets, Jake explained conversationally. We call it the politeness protocol. While you were making plans to eliminate us, we were making plans to defend ourselves. Defensive fleets? Stammered a Draknari representative. Those formations are surrounding our homeworlds. Yes, Jake agreed cheerfully. The best defense is often positioned where it can respond quickly to threats. Our ships are perfectly positioned to defend human interests should anyone decide to act aggressively. Lisa saw the genius of it. The human fleets weren't threatening anyone directly, but their positions made it clear that any attack on human territory would result in immediate retaliation against the attacker's most important worlds. Danny looked up from his tablet. Sir, we're receiving status reports from all fleet commanders. Operation Silent Guardian is fully operational. All defensive systems are online and ready. Thank you, Danny. Please send my regards to the fleet and remind them that we're still hoping for peaceful resolution. Speaker Morden's compound eyes darted between the tactical display and Jake's calm face. What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador? Jake leaned back in his chair, looking completely relaxed. I'm not proposing anything new, Speaker. I'm simply clarifying the existing situation. Humanity will continue to be a peaceful member of the Galactic Council. We will continue to participate in diplomatic discussions. We will continue to seek cooperative solutions to mutual problems. He paused, letting his words sink in. However, we will do so as equals, not as subjects. Our territory will remain under human control. Our colonies will be governed by human law. Our people will be protected by human strength. And if we refuse? Counselor Zixara asked quietly. Jake's smile became something else entirely. Still polite, still diplomatic, but with an edge that made everyone in the chamber lean back slightly. Then you'll discover what humans look like when we stop being polite. Captain Collins checked her weapon again, the motion casual but unmistakable. The ambassador has been very patient with all of you. He's explained the situation clearly and offered reasonable terms. I would strongly suggest accepting them. The chamber buzzed with whispered conversations as alien delegates consulted with their aides and each other. Lisa could see the calculations happening behind their eyes, weighing the cost of war against the humiliation of backing down. Perhaps, Speaker Morden said carefully, we could draft a new accord, something that recognizes the evolved nature of humanity's position in galactic affairs. An excellent suggestion, Jake replied warmly. Lisa, would you mind taking notes for the new treaty discussions? Lisa grabbed her stylus with shaking hands. Of course, Ambassador. Let's start with the basics, Jake continued. Mutual recognition of sovereignty, non-interference in internal affairs, equal representation in council decisions, protection of civilians, respect for territorial boundaries. As he spoke, Lisa realized that these weren't concessions Jake was asking for. They were fundamental rights that humanity had been denied for 3 years. Rights they had finally decided to claim by force if necessary. "Danny," Jake said, "please, transmit these preliminary terms to Earth Command for review." "Already done, sir." They send their approval and their congratulations on a job well done. The display screen shifted one more time, showing human space not as scattered, vulnerable colonies, but as a unified, defended territory. The blue dots, representing human worlds, were now surrounded by protective formations that could respond to any threat within hours. "There is one more thing," Jake said as the discussions wound down. "The Council should understand that this is not just about humanity. Every species in this galaxy has the right to exist without fear. Every civilization deserves to be treated with respect." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of different species. "We will not stand by and watch other species be bullied or eliminated. The galaxy is big enough for all of us, but only if we treat each other as equals." The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just protecting itself, it was establishing itself as the guardian of smaller species everywhere. As the session ended and delegates began filing out of the chamber, Lisa noticed how different their body language was. The swagger was gone. The condescension had vanished. They moved like people who had just learned that the harmless pet they had been teasing was actually a sleeping tiger. Jake gathered his papers and stood up, straightening his tie with the same careful precision he had shown for 3 years. "Well," he said to Lisa and Danny, "that went better than expected." "Sir," Captain Collins reported, "all fleet commanders are requesting permission to stand down to normal alert status." "Granted," Jake replied. "Tell them they did excellent work today. Peace is always preferable to the alternatives." As they walked out of the chamber, Lisa finally found her voice. "Jake, how long have you known about all of this?" Jake smiled, and for the first time in hours it was the gentle expression she remembered. "Since the day I was assigned to this position, Lisa. But I hoped we would never need to use it." He paused at the chamber door and looked back at the alien delegates, still clustered in worried groups. "Fortunately," he said quietly, "they chose to listen to reason. Now we can get back to the real work of building a peaceful galaxy. The Galactic Council would never make the mistake of underestimating humanity again." And somewhere in the depths of space, human ships continued their silent patrol, guardians of a peace that was finally built on mutual respect instead of assumed weakness.